Good evening and welcome to On the Frontline. When Black people are free, we are all free. I'm Luz Chavez Gonzalez with United We Dream. The Frontline Mass Calls are a space to engage in political education, analysis, and get involved in meaningful action. We're so glad you're here with us tonight, and we'll get started in just a minute. Spanish interpretation is provided on this call. If you wish to hear the Spanish interpretation, please select the globe icon on your computer or the more or the three dots icon on your tablet or smartphone. Select language interpretation and choose Spanish on the pop-up. Buenas noches y bienvenida al encuentro virtual de Frontline. Soy Luz Chávez González con United We Dream. Estos encuentros virtuales son espacio para escuchar análisis, participar en la educación política y tomar acción. Hay interpretación en español. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, por favor, seleccionar el icónico del globo en la computadora o donde dice More, a los 3 puntitos en su tableta o teléfono inteligente. Seleccione interpretación de idiomas y después español del menú que aparece. Now I'm going to just pass it to Thenjiwe McHarris from Movement for Black Lives, who will be here leading our call tonight.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to On the Front Line. When Black people are free, we all are free. I'm gonna say that again. When Black people are free, we all are free. If you're watching on Zoom, please use the chat to shout out and say hello and tell us where you're joining from. My name is Thenjiwe McHarris, and I am a proud member of the Movement for Black Lives. For those of you who have been on Frontline Mass Calls before, welcome back. We are happy that you are joining again. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. We've been waiting for you. The Frontline is a Black-led multiracial alliance of the Movement for Black Lives, the Working Families Party, United We Dream, and the Rising Majority. The Frontline, as many of you know, has been organizing to protect the right to vote, to fight for racial justice, to demand that our elected leaders prioritize the care and relief our communities need. And now the Frontline is very focused on taking the action required to hold elected officials accountable to the demands that are coming from our movements and from our communities. If you're new to the Frontline, we want you to be connected with us. We want you to stay with us. So please take out your phone and text Frontline to 304-403. Again, if you want to stay connected, if you want more information, please text Frontline to 30403. We know we need each other as we keep moving towards our freedom dream, so we hope that you all will stay connected with us. I want us to just ground by just thinking and sitting in the moment that we find ourselves in. And to start, as we come together tonight, it's important that we pause and acknowledge the harm, the violence that has happened over the past several weeks, the violence that has impacted so many, the lives that have been taken too soon, from the killing and massacre that happened in Boulder, Colorado, to the killing of 8 people, 6 of them Asian women in Atlanta, Georgia. It is important that we pause to acknowledge the violence, the loss, the pain, and that we share the rage. We take on the responsibility and the duty to have unwavering solidarity with our people and our family, and we also hold on to the deep love. All of these killings, these massacres, are a result of violent systems and a society that dehumanizes so many. What happened to the 6 Asian women who were targeted, who were killed in Atlanta, is the product of and speaks to the profound harms of white supremacy, of gender-based violence, and all the things that we must and need to dismantle that harms our people. Last week, some of you may have joined, but we had an IG Live conversation focused on Black and Asian solidarity. And we are grateful for those who joined us and led that conversation, and the artist, Liz Ray, who actually designed this graphic. We're so grateful that this information, that this content, that this discussion, again, around Asian and Black solidarity was captured in this visual. And we encourage folks to watch this conversation. If you'd like, you could still watch it and find it on the Frontline's YouTube channel. We must continue to talk about how white supremacy, how gender oppression works together to destroy our communities. At the Movement for Black Lives and at the Frontline, we stand in solidarity with our Asian family whose liberation we must fight for alongside our own fight for Black liberation. Also, as many folks know and folks are talking about across the country, this week, we're watching the Derek Chauvin's trial for the murder of George Floyd unfold. And there are so many who are experiencing so much pain and so much rage. The same pain, the same rage that sparked millions of people and led to the flooding of streets across the country in defense of Black lives. We continue to demand justice for George Floyd. We continue to demand justice for Breonna Taylor, for Tony McDade, and all those whose names we don't know. This trial makes clear to so many of us that these systems are not designed to deliver justice. They are designed as systems of brutality, as systems of punishment that targets, kills, and harms our people. We must move away from policing. We must move away from prisons, and we must demand that we not only divest from these institutions, from these systems, but that we also invest in what our communities need. It's important that we hold all of these, because from police brutality to mass incarceration, to gender-based violence, to the climate crisis, to anti-voter laws, which has a long and harmful part of our history, our people are up against so much. This is not new. Our people have always been under some form of attack. And yet amongst all of this, all the trauma, all the attack, all the targeting we've watched throughout history, our people have still been able to win collective victories for us, for our communities, for future generations. This is why we are still here, because for what our ancestors and our elders have done. And this generation will not only do as our ancestors and our elders have done, win victories for our people, but we will win the type of victories that are the future generations, that those coming after us deserve. And this is our duty. This is our mission. So we must contend with all of these things, from changing temperatures to the material conditions of our people. We also understand that the only way that we can address these harms is to confront the structures and the systems of oppression that create them. Now that more than ever, we need to have a vision. We have to be bold, and we must have the courage to build a world free of racial capitalism, free of economic exploitation. We have to move away from a world where we can have a CEO of Amazon be the richest man on the planet, while Amazon workers have to fight for health protections, have to fight for good quality labor conditions, have to fight for good quality pay. We have to move away from a world with white supremacy and state violence that allows for white supremacists to threaten our lives, to take our loved ones, and a government that would rather police and criminalize than house and educate. We have to move away from a world of patriarchal violence and gender-based violence that contributes to the psychological, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual harm of our people, while also creating a culture of domination, of control, and of power over. Our mission is to envision a world free from all of this and to build at the center what will take its place. A vision of climate justice, a vision of liberation for all our people, a vision where our communities have access to what they need and they have say over how resources are distributed, that they get quality housing, quality education, healthcare, and freedom. We have to envision a world and build a world that has a powerful, transformative, and beautiful concept of justice. A vision of a thriving, a liberated people. Our duty is to build that world and create it. During tonight's event, I want to ask you all to imagine what the world would look like, what the world will look like when we win. We must be brave enough to not only dismantle what harms us, but to create what nourishes us. Those that came before us have worked so hard to dismantle what harms us. And they have also created ways and a path for us to be here today. And we have a duty and a responsibility to pave the road for the future generations. So again, the invitation is, please join me in imagining and feeling and tasting what the world will look like, feel like, taste like when we win. This is the invitation that is before you tonight. And that's fundamentally why we're here, because tonight we want to spend some time exploring what Black liberation can teach us about the country's past, present, and future. You'll learn more about the movement for Black lives from folks like Monifa and Colette, which I'll talk about soon. And if folks are interested in learning more about the movement for Black lives, to be connected with the movement for Black lives, we also ask you to text to text DEFEND to 90975. We also want many folks to be connected with M4BL. So again, text DEFEND to 90975. Now, our event tonight will begin with a cultural grounding that I'm very excited about, very inspired and honored that this person is with us, a grounding from Mumu Fresh, which folks will hear from very soon. And then we'll spend a few minutes looking to the past to understand the deep relationship between capitalism, racism, and patriarchy. And then we'll hear from an inspiring group of movement leaders who inspire me every day, who keep me going. They include Monifa Bandele with the Malcolm X grassroots movement and also a leader within the movement for Black lives. Monifa has been one of the leaders helping lead the Breathe Act and our Invest Divest work. And then we'll hear from Holley. Many people know from Fair Fight Action about the need to defend and expand voting rights. And then we'll hear from a dear comrade and Colette Pichon Battle from the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy, and also a leader within the movement for Black lives, about climate justice and the Red, Black, and Green New Deal. So I'm very excited for this panel. I can't wait to get into it. And then after the panel, I'll share an update about actions to hold members of Congress accountable and demand a bold progressive agenda. So y'all be hearing about what are demands that we're demanding of Congress right now. To get involved, you can check out the map of actions that's on your screen that should be coming up right now, and download the Frontline's Creative Action Toolkit. Lastly, I just want everyone to know who's with us, that when you call out white supremacy, when you call out capitalism, when you call out patriarchy, there will always be haters. And there might be some trolls here with us tonight. So if you see any hateful messages in this Zoom chat, it's all good, because what we're going to do, what the ask is of all of you, is just to hit them and show them the love that we have for each other. So please flood the chat box if you see any hating, any trolling. Flood it with solidarity, with love, and positive messages, and as we stay on mission for why we're here tonight. Now, I'm so pleased and so honored and so humbled to introduce the very inspiring, the very brilliant Mumu Fresh, a critically acclaimed Afro-Indigenous singer and artist.
This song is called North Star from our new album. And the North Star has a very strong significance to Black Americans. It is the star that we use to escape slavery and become free by the thousands and thousands. We use this star as our navigation system through the dark, through the woods, through the thickets, with nothing but this faith. And we follow the drinking gourd and the North Star until we obtained our freedom. And to me, this star is very symbolic. It is that guidance system inside of your heart, inside of your spirit, that say, keep running for freedom. Don't ever stop. You was born to be free. No matter what nobody tells you, you were born for a special purpose. And that North Star is there. If you seek it, you shall find it. So this is North Star.
If you lose your
spirit flowing through my ligaments. Thought-provoking type of lyricists don't come with no health benefits. I was too good to be good enough. They hated that I made them level up, and I was just looking for a friend. Silly me, silly them with the illy pen, killing me. What's a lost man's medicine? A real ass kind of reckoning. Petty me, petty them. The righteous rose a lonely one. The words I told my only son. The weak will fold and come undone. The strong will grow and lead them up. What you do when no one agrees with you, huh? Can you still speak the truth? With no amens and no cosigns and no praise hands or no post signs. Everybody do the most, trying to prove that they won't, huh? May God give us discernment from the fake prophets and the posers. These days can't tell the same from the profane. Call a shit drip, chocolate rain. Everything for sale is a damn shame. I've been woke so long, my eyelids swole. You couldn't know this road I'm on. I pray we make it home. My king, my son, my throne. Carry on, baby. If you lose your way, it's only a prayer away. Your guiding light, your North Star is with you everywhere you are. Baby, if you lose your way, it's only a prayer away. Oh, hold on to your dreams. Remember your love is. I've been standing on my square. Wherever I go, I'm right here. Even when there's fear, my guiding light shines clear, lifting me above the crowd. Ooh, eagle view above the clouds. Said, baby, if you lose your way, it's only a prayer away. Your guiding light, your North Star is with you everywhere you are. Baby, if you lose your way, if you lose your way, it's only a prayer away. Your guiding light, your North Star is with you everywhere you are. Oh, baby, if you lose your way, said it's only a prayer away, prayer away, prayer away. To your dreams, remember your love is. Remember your king. You were meant for greatness, baby. You should lose your way. Follow that North Star back home to freedom. Baby, if you should lose your way. Ooh, baby, if you lose your way. Remember these words, how to say, your guiding light, your North Star, is with you everywhere you are, where you are. Oh baby, if you lose your way, only a ray away. Hold on to your dreams. Remember, you're a hero.
Grateful for Mumu Fresh. Mumu Fresh said, follow that North Star back home to freedom, especially when you lose your way. Your guiding light, your North Star is with you everywhere you are. Music has always played a role in Black liberation struggle. It has been our salvation, our balm. We are so grateful for those who have created such beautiful music, such powerful sound, such moving and inspiring words. And I'm so grateful for Mumu Fresh. And grateful that each one of you with us right now is with us, here with us to talk about all these things, Black liberation, to talk about the liberation of our people, but to also just be here with us in what I feel like is just a very important, sacred, and powerful time for us to be together fighting for justice. Now, I'm so excited for this next amazing panel, this next amazing group of movement leaders who are going to talk to us about their vision for what the world would look like and feel like if we all could breathe. But first, I just want to spend some time, a few minutes, reflecting on the history of racial capitalism. I want us to start there for just a bit. And many of this, many folks know, but just to anchor in so much of history that grounds and helps informs where we are now. During slavery, white men who owned land decided that if someone had one drop of Black blood, then they were legally considered Black, fully Black. Why? Because racializing people of African descent benefited the slave owners. More Black people meant more slaves and more wealth for them. Our people literally were the capital, owned and controlled for the profit of a few. And in some ways, this still continues. The social construction of race in this country, whether we're talking about Black folks, our indigenous family, and others, is fundamentally tied to a capitalist economy. Racializing non-white people enables white men to accumulate more wealth and more power. Now enter the police. Modern police departments have their origins in slave patrols in the South, dating back to the 1700s. As the plantation economy boomed, the relatively small population of white people were vastly outnumbered by enslaved Africans, our ancestors, and they lived in fear of organized Black resistance. Slave patrols subjected Black people to searches and questioning. Black people were forced to show a pass when traveling and beaten if they did not. Meanwhile, white people were incentivized to be vigilant and report any suspicious behavior. I'm gonna say this again. Meanwhile, white people were incentivized to be vigilant and report any suspicious behavior. Today's demands to defund the police are fundamentally about dismantling the history of state violence being used to control Black bodies. Another example of the relationship between race, money, and power is the long history of Black people's fight for equal access to the vote. In 1870, the 15th Amendment established that no one could be denied the right to vote based on their race, but states, especially southern states, began enacting barriers to voting, like poll taxes. Black people exercising their right to vote were met with violence, ranging from police dogs to white mob violence. The modern equivalence of barriers to voting includes misinformation, fewer polling locations in Black communities, and statewide voter suppression laws, like the one that just passed in Georgia, which we'll hear more about in a minute. And we know that we also see very similar things that we saw decades before in terms of white mob violence. In the 1950s and 60s, segregationists, Republicans in the Senate began using the filibuster to try and block civil rights legislation. The filibuster is when a single person refuses to yield the floor during a debate to block a piece of legislation. It is not in the Constitution and historically has been used as an anti-democratic tactic to block progressive initiatives. This, what you're seeing right now, is a photo of South Carolina senator who talked for 24 hours and 18 minutes trying to prevent the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1957. Today, a credible threat of 41 senators refusing to end floor debates is enough to prevent a vote from happening, meaning most major legislation requires a supermajority of 60. The filibuster continues to be a tool of right-wing obstructionists, and we must abolish it to win racial justice, to win economic justice, and to win climate justice. And so I want us to ground in this history as we invite in these very powerful, these very inspiring leaders and speakers to talk to us about their work. So again, now I'm pleased to introduce some of the most amazing leaders to help us make sense of the moment and look towards the future. I'm honored to be joined tonight by Monifa Bandele, who sits on the Movement for Black Lives' policy table leadership team, and she's also with the Malcolm X grassroots movement. Holley, the Director of Organizing for Fair Fight Action, and Colette Pichon, the Founder and Executive Director of Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy. Now, I'm going to ask each of the panelists here tonight this first question, and everyone has 3 to 4 minutes. And the question is, can each of you please share what you're working towards and your vision? And lastly, what does the world look like if we achieve your goals? And I'd love to start with you, Monifa.
Thank you so much, Thenjiwe. What a powerful presentation. And it leads right into the answer that I had for that question about what I'm fighting for. Because when I picture and imagine who I'm fighting for, it's Black mothers. And when you talk about our bodies being commodities, our wombs have always been these factories. And so I'm dreaming of and fighting for a future where our bodies and our wombs are not producing commodities for capitalism, but producing full human beings that can enjoy life, survive, and thrive. And so specifically, I think about mothers like Muhammad Ba's mother, Ahawa Ba, here in New York City, who picked up the phone one day to call for an ambulance for care for her son who was having an emotional health crisis. And instead, police showed up and killed her son. And so when we talk about all of the invest, divest framework that you laid out, it is very specific. It is very personal. It's very visceral. There are real lives and faces and names attached to what happens when you fight for a future that can imagine real safety, real health, real security, and take away things like cages and militarization and death. And so this is what I'm fighting for through actual pieces of policy from the federal to the local level. And I'll get into it some more, but nationally, we're fighting for the Breathe Act, which imagines a world where we, through our federal dollars, stand up grants programs that support safe housing, safe schools, all of the things that we know are really safe, and take away from all of the things that we know are really harmful, like mass incarceration and mass criminalization. And then on the state level, we're reflecting that in Breathe state bills that look at overturning drug policies that have been criminalizing our communities for so long. And finally, what we heard in all the streets, from the West Coast to the East Coast, to the Midwest to the South, was the call to defund the police. And so in our cities and in our local levels, we're having these budget fights to make sure that our cities' budgets are the moral documents that prioritize us as human beings instead of continuing that cycle that you laid out, where our bodies are commodities for capitalism and must be controlled by the capitalist structure. So that is what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a new era where we really see care and safety as a reality.
Thank you so much, Monifa. I stay inspired by you, Monifa. And I just want to lift up just what you talked about, like fighting for investing in our communities and divesting from what harms us, fighting for the breathe back, fighting over budgets at every level of government is so key. And so we're going to come back to you, Monifa, in a little bit. But now I would love to talk about sort of what's happening in terms of the right to vote. And I'd love to kick the question to you next, Hillary. Explain what you're fighting for, and then what is the vision? What does it feel like, taste like when we win?
Yeah, so I want to say thank you all for having me this evening. As you know, the reason why we do what we do is because we believe in electoral justice. Looking at, let's say, in Georgia, Southwest Georgia specifically, has a large population of beautiful Black people that have been there for centuries. And they have never been able to have the electoral power because of the racist systems that were, put in place 100 years ago, but then have just changed over time and became more sophisticated. And so because of the lack of electoral power in our more rural areas across the South in the country, we see just horrible crises. I'm thinking, before we were just talking about Black mothers, Southwest Georgia, because of the lack of electoral power that's been stripped from them. They have some of the highest Black maternal mortality rates in the world. When COVID first hit Georgia specifically, Southwest Georgia had the third highest death rate per capita in the world. It is, you cannot take away, or you cannot debate that because of the lack of access to the ballot that they have been giving, the lack of representation that they've never been able to have is not connected to their struggle to live. And so when we're over here at Fair Fight Action fighting for the right to vote, it's not simply for political parties. It is to try to mitigate death. It is literally try to mitigate harm, because what we have seen is there have been moments in rural communities where they do fight for the right to vote, and they use the tools that have been fought for over the years to win the school board. That it happened, for example, in Quitman, Georgia. They were able to overcome a racist school board and have Black mothers serve on it. And now Quitman County has access in their school system that has become better. And so a lot of times people like to think of voting rights as this large national federal push. But what we're really doing it for are these local communities, because it really has such an impact on the day-to-day Black person's life. And so what I vision is for Southwest Georgia to have power to then bring down and build healthcare infrastructure to save lives, to save Black mothers. I think about places like Sparta, Georgia, when they were trying to register Black people to vote and the police showed up to their doors. But then they came together this very year and got the man fired who had sent the cops to their job, because he's the one that was pushing the voter suppression bills. So I see growth and us utilizing our power, not just through the right to vote, but when we're fighting for it. And at the end of the day, we're doing it to save lives. That's what we believe in, and that's what I see.
Thank you so much, Hillary. And I just want to just repeat something I just heard you say. Is like we're doing this to save lives, and everything that you just talked about is so much about what we're doing to keep our people alive, so that our people can survive, as we also pave the way that our people can thrive. And just thank you for all the work that you're doing and everything that you just shared with us. I'd love to go to you now, Colette. And your work is always so powerful, always so inspiring. Can you share with the people what you're fighting for? Talk to them about climate justice, about the Red, Black, and Green New Deal, and then can you share with us a vision for the future? What would the world be like if we truly had climate justice?
Thank you, Thenjiwe, and thanks everyone. I love this question. For a climate advocate, this question is very simple. If we win climate justice, we win the planet. And it's as simple as that. The climate crisis is not just threatening all of the justice issues that we've heard about. It's not just threatening our nation. It's threatening the globe. It's threatening everyone. And it's happening now. This win is a win for the planet. It's a win for the globe. It's a win for the global South. And that's what we're really fighting for with the Movement for Black Lives, partnering with the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy to advance a Red, Black, and Green New Deal. When we win, the subject matter is quite simple. We win on land. We win on water. We win on energy. We win on democracy. We win on economy, jobs, housing, transportation. Why is this list so long? Because climate impacts all of these things. And when we win on all of these things, we change and transform our society. And we all know that if we transform the United States, we can transform the globe. I'm excited because this is rooted in a fight for Black liberation. We can achieve all of these things. We can achieve climate justice if we move on the fight for Black liberation and we move on it in a way that really understands the history that we heard about earlier, really takes in that North Star song and remembers that we had to fight for our own humanity, and really bring that fight into a current situation that is about the way we consume, the things we produce, the things we extract, and what we're putting into the atmosphere. This is not a conversation about polar bears or canaries or trees, but let me be clear, friends. The polar bears, the canaries, and the trees have paid a price so that we could pay attention of what's going to happen to our broader ecosystem. This is a situation that is dire. We have less than a decade before we reach a point of no return. And if we get our acts together on this one, we win our entire humanity back. I'm excited about this work because it really brings in all of the fights we've heard about. It brings in all of the work that people are doing. And it goes one step further than just recycling or planting trees, which we must continue to do. But it says it's time for all of us to look at what is causing the problem, what's at the root cause. And it brings itself back to that economic system that we heard Monifa talk about, that looks at female bodies and values them as something that can just produce for a larger market. That philosophy is the same philosophy of this earth. It's why we drill. It's why we extract oil and gas. It's why we take coal and blow up mountains. It's because we are part of a system that tries to put a valuation on everything. But the climate justice battle says there are some things more valuable than gold, more valuable than money, and more valuable than the comfort of just a few. This fight is about everyone standing up, not just for themselves, not just for their community, but for the very planet that we all depend on, whether we want to admit that or not. I'm excited about what can happen with this climate justice movement, but we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time for everyone to take small steps and incremental changes. We need bold climate action. We need transformative commitments from our leadership and from everyone on the ground. I'm excited to be a part of this work, but it's time to come in, friends. We don't have much time left.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you. Right now, we have a duty, we have a mission. And you captured that so powerfully in what you shared in terms of what we must do in this moment. And I know many folks know and understand, I know all of you do, that in order to win, in order to have victory, we must build the powerful, courageous, bold, big movement that can achieve all of these goals. From divestment, investment, and a restructuring of the economy, to voting rights and access to actual radical forms of the true democracy for all of our people, and climate justice, that all of these are interconnected. And we actually need a big, vibrant, bold, powerful, dynamic movement in order to make it possible. And so if I want to go again to you all, and for folks listening in, for folks thinking, what is my role? How can I be part of something to contribute to justice in this moment? What can I do to achieve the vision that you all laid out? Can each of you just share, what can folks do? How can folks contribute to the vision? How can folks contribute to reaching justice? And I'd love to start with you, Monifa, to talk about Divest, Invest, to talk about the Breathe Act, and essentially the fight over budgets.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so inspired. You know, Colette, when she says we're running out of time, I just feel like I want to get up out of my seat, because the time really is right now. Not only because the situation is so dire, but because our people, by the tens of millions, have created the conditions for us to step forward and do this right now. 25 million people didn't take to the streets for us to do this in 10 years or in 5 years. The time is now. Both the conditions and the crisis have come together, and it's a mandate for us. And so what does that mean? I feel like, you know, people get anxious. You know, they may say, well, I don't write pieces of legislation, so I don't know if I can help in drafting policy in my city or my state, or, you know, write a letter to my congressman. You can stand in your power wherever you are. One of the most powerful sights I saw last summer in our fight to defund the police was when bus drivers stepped off of the buses. This is New York MTA, and refused to transport the protesters in downtown Brooklyn to jail on behalf of the NYPD. They made a collective decision, and they put out a statement. And I mean, tears were in our eyes. You know, they weren't inside of the coalition designing the campaign, but it was so powerful. And it put forth a message that everyone in our community is standing together on this demand for safety and care. Everyone in our community wants Hawa Ba to be able to pick up the phone and get an ambulance and get health care and get what she needs and not get death at her door. And so you can do that. If you are a teacher, if you work in a store, you know, if you are an athlete, if you are on television, everyone can stand in their power and say that this is the era. They can say what Colette says is time is running out and time is now, and I'm going to take action. But also concretely, you can go to the Breathe Act website. You can go to breatheact.org. You can sign on to be a community co-sponsor. You can also join the Movement for Black Lives. Go to infobl.org, sign up. You'll get all of our mailings, all of our text messages, so that you can take action collectively with us when we're pushing the lawmakers. And then also locally, if you are a part of an organization, especially if you're a part of a Black-led organization, reach out to us, join our ecosystem. And it's not just on policing. This is why I love to be on panels with Colette. It's about saving the planet. This is just one component to how we're actually trying to save the whole world. So last year, Black women were on the front line to stop fascism. And we're going to keep being on the front line now to save the actual earth. Join us. I don't care if you're a florist or you are a legislative specialist. We have work for you to do.
Come on, Maureen. The doors are open. The invitation is there. Thank you.
The doors are open.
The doors are open.
And the florist is a powerful piece. I say that not as a juxtaposition, but to say that that is actually as important as our legislative experts. We need the botanists. We need to envision the future that we want, and we need to be prepared to govern, to work the land, to work new ecosystems, economies, all of those things. And we are the ones that will design that. I want to end by saying that everything you see today, all the systems that we are so upset with, were designed by someone. And they were no more brilliant than us. In fact, I believe we are more brilliant than the designers of this current system. And so we have to break free, you know, from this idea that we cannot create something drastically transformative and new.
Come on, Monifa Bandele.
That's right.
Come on. Yes. Yes. Make it plain. Yes.
Well, that gets me fired up, Thenjiwe. Right?
I'm fired up. Go to you, Hillary, and for folks listening, how do we build this powerful movement? What can folks do to achieve the vision?
Right. So there, unfortunately, fighting voter suppression, you always have to have 3 parallel strategies happening at the same time. Especially the full frontal attack we're seeing right now just proves the strategy. So 1, first we need Congress to act. Georgia delivered the US Senate for people who are more willing to at least listen and fight. We need them to prove that all the Black and brown voters who waited in line for 3 to 4 hours, that it was worth something to them. That we have to get Congress to pass the For the People Act, which is HR 1, and we need Congress to also pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which is HR 4, right now. Because I'm telling you all right now, everything that they have lined up in 2022, they are trying to steal the election. And remember how close they were at stealing the election last year. And then that brings me to the state level. So we need Congress to act right now. And the fight about the filibuster, let's fight about it. But let's remember, our goal is to pass these 2 bills, period. Second, we have to make sure that we are also fighting in the state legislatures. Georgia is not an anomaly. They are doing exactly what they did in Georgia last week. They're doing it in Arizona because of Latinx voters and Black voters and Native voters. They're doing it in Michigan. They're trying to attack cities like Detroit and other Black areas in Michigan. They're doing it in Texas because in Texas, there's finally been a strategy to do real outreach to Black and brown voters, and they saw it work in 2020. But when the right wing went to go and block election certifications, a lot of these state laws didn't allow them to go as far as they wanted to go. So what they're doing right now, y'all, they are making the laws, they're implementing laws to allow the racist state legislatures to literally come in, take over the election certification process, and try to block any kind of election results from being certified that they do not like. That is where we are headed right now. And so, and unfortunately, the reason why I'm saying we have to have parallel tracks is HR 1 and HR 4, it doesn't allow, it will not cover the fact that they are trying to take over state election boards in these states or county election boards. And so we're seeing an attack where we might not be able to certify election results in 2022. We're going to have longer lines, more purges, more attacks on vote by mail, more attack on drop boxes if Congress doesn't act. So we need Congress to act. We need to fight on the state level to make sure that they don't pass these anti-voting bills. And then second, we have to make sure that we are organizing on the county level. So for example, in Georgia right now, one of my amazing colleagues, Abril, she has been working with Georgia's 159 counties. Because remember, in Georgia, our counties are based off of the plantation system from when our ancestors were first brought to this country. So we have 159 counties that now can go and literally they can be taken over by right-wing anti-voting folks at any moment they want. And if we don't organize in these counties and protect those people on the Board of Elections who actually do believe in democracy, we literally do not stand a chance. So we have to organize and support our Board of Election members who believe in democracy. We have to do everything in our power to defeat the anti-voting bills in the states to protect the state election systems. And we have to get Congress to act right now, because if Congress does not act and our elections get stolen in 2022, we will not have another fighting chance for another 10 years. Think about that. 10 years. That is loss of life. that is just devastating. And so what moves me is making sure that we are organizing on all three fronts, and not getting defeated, because that's another thing. They're trying to outwork us. They're trying to make us tired. They're trying to make us give up. That's part of the main strategy of voter suppression. And so let's do self-care and try to do at least one thing on all those different levels to bring us to where we need to be.
So much gratitude and just respect for all the work that you do, Hillary, and just for like the clarity and the call around urgency and this piece around fatigue and tiring our people. All of this stuff is used as a tactic so that they can move an agenda and a strategy. And that it's so important that we have to care, we have to rest, we have to do what we need to do, but we also must be vigilant, because right now they are moving an agenda and a strategy that, if successful, will undermine, harm, and kill our people. But I also what I'm hearing from the spirit of what you're also saying is, and also what Monifa said, we are stronger, we are smarter, we will defeat them, they will not defeat us. So I'm just so grateful for you, Hillary, and for all the work that you do. And now I'm going to just go to you, Colette. And if you could, again, talk about how do we build this powerful movement? What are we up against? And then what can people do to help achieve this vision?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I want to lift up the HEMES principles. There's one particular principle in there that says you have to have a commitment to self-transformation. And I want to offer that to folks, because the climate crisis is not caused just by the 12 companies that we've been able to identify as putting the most emissions into the atmosphere. And it's not identified by the 15 industrialized nations that have these massive emissions. It's not just that. It's that we're part of a consumer trend. We're part of a consumer culture. The way we consume, especially as Americans, is causing an imbalance in the planet. And that commitment to self-transformation is not just about us pointing the fingers, but it is about us understanding that the transformation that has to happen is going to have to start with us. This is about what we buy, who we buy it from, where we get it from, what we're supporting. We shouldn't just be eating organic foods because it's cool, although it's cool. We should be eating these things because it's not full of the fossil fuel-based pesticides and other chemicals that are used to mass produce your food. I'm not saying anybody has to become anything strange like a vegetarian or anything like that. I'm just saying it's time for folks to start buying locally so that we can stop fueling a consumer agricultural system that is literally ruining the planet. And we're going to have to think about what we use fossil fuels for, what we use coal for. There are people down here in the Gulf South who are paying a price for people in the Northeast to be warm. There is something wrong when we have a system that requires us to extract from the earth, push it all the way across the country, and then have other people sacrificed, when there's a sun and constant wind that we could be using as renewable energy to keep everybody okay. We have to be fighting the same way Hillary said we have to fight at the county level. We have to fight at the county level for against the privatization of our natural resources, against the privatization of water, against the privatization of public lands. There's a fight happening near you. Trust and believe. Everybody's paying attention to this climate crisis except us, and they are putting their money on things that you need, like water and food. We have to get out there. We have to start organizing around this stuff, and we have to protect those folks who are practicing organic methods of farming and collecting water and keeping water clean. We have to protect those indigenous ways of being and those longstanding ways of being, not just as a relic or something to exotify, but as something that's going to save our lives. And finally, I'm going to say it's time for us to honor our representatives and our leaders. And by honor, I mean, you got to honor the way you honor your family. Sometimes you got to challenge your family in order to honor them. We cannot have any more, not yours and not mine, politicians who are denying that there's a climate crisis, who are denying that in order to fix this climate crisis, we need to put more money into fossil fuels, into things that are killing us. We need to actually understand that honoring the people who represent us in our churches, in our elected spaces, means that we push them to stand with people, not profits, to stand with the planet, not companies and corporations. We need folks to engage on a level that takes you out of your comfort zone of helping us brown folks, poor folks, and folks who are marginalized. And we need you to go get all of your elected officials who are in your very well-funded districts and tell them that you need them acting on the climate crisis and you need them taking bold action now. We don't have any more time to discuss what is or is not true by 99% of the world's scientists who are looking at this thing. It is now time for us to actually push our leadership at every level, teachers, nurses, emergency workers, elected officials. We need to push everybody to move on climate. And if you are a local, poor, Black, or Southern community, it's time to make a plan. The extreme weather that we are seeing, that we saw in 2020 with a record-breaking hurricane season, is about to continue. And if you are living in an urban area, you need right now to get ready for levels of heat that you have never anticipated. And we need to make sure that our people are okay. We need to make sure that green space isn't just a luxury for some people, and make sure that our resistance includes a re-indigenization to this land and a respect of this planet and the traditions that tell us to hold it sacred and hold it safe.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you, Colette. Thank you, Monifa. Thank you, Hillary. What's just sitting with me is we have a mission, we have a mandate, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to our people. We have a duty to future generations. And the invitation is to step into your power. This is our time. It is our time to not just undo all the harms that they have done for us for decades and generations, but to demand and to achieve a radical realignment of power so that we can achieve climate justice, so that we can achieve true democracy, so that we can achieve what we need for our communities and a mass divestment from what harms us. And so I just want to say just so much gratitude. I feel so empowered by what you all just offered. And I hope everybody who is listening also knows that what this means for us is not just that this is a moment that we must step into our power, but that we can and that we will and that we must, because we have no other choice. And we're going to do it together. So thank you again to Hillary. Thank you, Monifa. Thank you, Colette. See, this is why they are always inspiring me. And thank you for this panel. So I'd like to just hopefully soon close this call out, but we want to share with you a few things. There's a lot of important, powerful things that are happening right in this moment. And we wanted to give you all a quick report back on some of what the Frontline and our allies have been working on. Over the last year, millions of people have lost their jobs and healthcare in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Catastrophic climate events like the recent winter storm in the South are more and more frequent. Right now, we have a once-in-a-generation chance to rebuild and renew our economy and fight for a recovery package that addresses these crises on all fronts. Earlier today, Biden made a speech in Pittsburgh about his economic recovery plan. In normal times, Biden's proposal would be good for some, but emerging from this year of crisis, we need Biden and congressional leaders to go bigger. We have no choice. The Thrive Act is a truly bold recovery package that invests $10 trillion over 10 years. Again, it's a recovery package that invests $10 trillion over 10 years. Thrive would put 15 million people back to work in green jobs, cut climate pollution in half by 2030, and advances racial and environmental and economic justice. Right now, Congress is on a 2-week recess. This is when they leave DC, as many of you know, and go back to their home states. During this time, it's their job to listen to the people. We're making sure that that's happening with what we're calling recovery recess. And today was a time to Thrive Day of Action. Activists and organizers hosted events all across the country, including a cake delivery, a virtual happy hour, and a live DJ in New York, an interactive webinar in Alaska, a town hall event in Pennsylvania, a mural unveiling in New Mexico, and numerous rallies at congressional offices, all to demand that members of Congress support the Thrive Act. Here's an example of musicians calling on Colorado senators to support the Thrive agenda.
Some fight to survive, each for their very life. I'm standing on the right. We all deserve to thrive.
Hold up, stop the press a minute. Crisis unprecedented. Been a struggle and it's test of limits. Let me rock the house and address the Senate. It is not yet the finish line, but it's dinner time. Gotta hold on for another day, dream another taste of the celebration. That awaits from the bright lights to the muted flames. Purple mountains to the fruited plains, high rise to commuter trains. I can feel it running through my veins. A thirst for a true recovery, a hunger from another season to come alive like blossoms, leaves, and butterflies. The springtime of 1,000 movements, colors fly. The vision is clear, so open your eyes. The table is filled with red and roses. Today we build it, together we thrive.
Some fight to survive.
Join us.
Each for their very life.
Join us.
I'm standing on
We
the
need you to join us.
We all deserve to
Together we thrive.
Some fight to survive.
Congress is simple. No excuses. Our people need a real recovery now. And it's not too late for you to take action. Our map of actions has more than 100 upcoming events over the next 2 weeks, including town halls, protests, concerts, and creative actions. We need all of you here with us tonight to hold Congress's feet to the fire to demand a bold economic recovery plan. You can use the links on your screen to find an action near you and to download the Frontline's Creative Action Toolkit for actions that you can do anywhere. And so please join us. We need bold economic recovery, and please take on and be part of the movement to pass the Thrive Act. I want to thank every single speaker, musician, everyone that contributed, the amazing interpreters, everyone that has helped make tonight happen. I want to thank all of you for being here with us, for wanting to be on the front line to fight for what our communities deserve, to fight for what future generations need. And if you want to learn more about M4BL, if you want to be connected to M4BL, again, text DEFEND to 90975. Again, text DEFEND to 90975. If you want to connect with the Frontline and be with this crew, this alliance of the Movement for Black Lives, of United We Dream, the Rising Majority, and the Working Families Party, please text Frontline to 30403. Again, text Frontline to 30403. And don't miss the Frontline's next mass call in 2 weeks. It's going to be on April 14th, and it's going to focus on democracy reform. Thank each of you for being here. I hope if you take anything away from tonight, know this, that we're in such a critical moment in history. So much is being told from us, from everyone that has come before us, our ancestors, our elders. We have them at our back. We have their support. They have paved the road for our victory. We have so much to do in this moment to achieve lasting, meaningful, powerful victory for our people, and to do what is required to make those coming after us proud for what we've done. And so thank you. The invitation to step into your power is here. It is there for you, and we will win together. Good night.